Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. Today I will be reviewing this rifle here. It is the Hatsan Escort 22LR 18-inch model. It is, as you can tell from the name, a 22 caliber rimfire rifle. I'm going to go over the background of this gun, take you through the features on this rifle, then we'll do some shooting, and I will summarize my thoughts on this rifle and whether I think it's something you should consider or just skip over. So let's start with the name, the model, the brand. So most likely you haven't ever heard of this gun, and that's not surprising because this is imported by a company called Hatsan, which is one of many companies right now operating in the space of importing shotguns from Turkey, slapping a brand name on it, one of many brand names, and then sending them out, and they're all fairly cheap. Pretty much all of us have seen those, if you're into guns, seen these really cheap shotguns on the market. So Hatsan is one of those companies, but what I thought was interesting is I saw that they were importing a rifle like this, Escort 22LR, obviously rimfire rifle. You don't typically see these companies importing, rifles of any kind. So that to me was very interesting, and what I thought was extremely interesting was the price. So this gun out the door for me, I bought it online, and out the door after shipping, transfer fees, it was $218.33. So very affordable. If you compare that to something, other guns in the 22 space, I think like 1022s are running in the high 200s if you're lucky, low 300s, and they don't even have some of the features that this gun has, which we'll go through later. So this was very compelling to me at that price point, and especially what was compelling to me at that price point is, if you know anything about rimfire rifles, looking at this, you might think it's somewhat familiar, and you would be right because it's very clear that this is a CZ457 clone, and that's further shown by the magazines this uses. So this came with two magazines. Obviously, if you've seen CZ457 mags, they look very familiar. My understanding is that CZ457 mags will fit in this rifle if you were to buy them. I have not tried that, but that's what I hear online. I can't speak for that personally, but that is what I've seen online. And speaking about what I've seen online, I can't find a lot of information on this rifle, which is the main reason I'm doing this review. I'm not really trying to be a gun review channel, but this is a very compelling tool at a very compelling price if it's quality. So I did want to review that for you guys. What I do see online is, as I said, it's a CZ clone. There seems to currently be two models available on the market new. It is this model, which is the 18-inch model, and there's the 22-inch model, which you can get same, plastic stock, same feature set, just a longer barrel length. Now, the manual that this came with shows a slightly different rifle. We have a wood stock. We have iron sights that this rifle doesn't have. We have sling attachments that this rifle doesn't have. So there are or were different models in the past and maybe in other countries. But in the U.S., this seems to be the one of the only two models that you can get. So I did want to bring that to your attention. If you're in other markets, which I have noticed, the information that is out there about these guns seems to be mostly, in like Australia, New Zealand, other countries. Maybe this gun is more popular overseas. But here in the U.S., it seems like we are currently limited to these two models. I haven't seen these all over the place. I think I've only seen it in one gun store and I ended up buying it online. This is not a common rifle by any means. So if you're really interested in something like this, you might have to end up ordering online. But when I did see it in the store one time, it was, $200 out the door. so even cheaper than what I got it for. So definitely a very compelling price. So yeah, to summarize, background on this gun, $200, 200 and change dollars, CZ clone from Turkey. We're going to start going over the features of this gun, starting from the back and moving our way forward. We have a rubber butt pad. Nice feature, not very necessary on a rimfire rifle, but it does add a little bit of comfort as you pull it into your shoulder. You see this slot here is actually for those magazines that I showed you. Actually store a spare magazine in the stock, which I think is very, very clever. Let me just readjust that. You have your standard sling swivel stud that came on the gun. You have a black plastic stock. Feels pretty nice. Doesn't feel that cheap, so that's good. And obviously, it saves on weight. Moving forward, this, on the hand, on the grip here, it has this sort of fake stippling. Doesn't really do anything. It's almost just decorative, but you do have that there. You have the bolt playing with it, or running the action. It's not the smoothest thing in the world, I'll be honest with you. I don't know if you could hear the grit. It is lubricated. It's not that smooth, but again, at the price point, I can't say I was expecting it to be particularly smooth. This is your manual safety, so when the bolt is closed, you see red, it could fire, and you gotta really force it forward, and now it's on safe. Moving forward, what this rifle doesn't have is sights. So obviously the scope, well, maybe it's not obvious. The scope did not come with the gun. I bought that scope. That is a CV Life 39x40 scope. It's from Amazon. The scope deserves a review all of its own, but if you want the TLDR version on the scope, it's good. It's a great rimfire scope for a great price. You should buy it. But anyway, the scope did not come on the gun. We have this dovetail rail that you could probably see below the scope, and no iron sights. There's no front or rear irons. So this gun out of the box is really not ready to shoot. It's obviously, sold with the intention of putting a scope on. So something to consider, especially since some of the other versions floating around, even the version printed on the manual that came with this gun, that came with iron sights. So just so you know, the ones that are being sold right now in the US do not come with iron sights. I almost forgot to mention, this trigger is adjustable. You have to take the stock off to adjust it, and I haven't bothered with that, just kind of because it's a pain. I would like to try that, because the trigger as it stands is very light, but I did want to mention that feature for you. That's a great feature. So moving forward, we have the magazine. Well, again, it works fine. One-hand operation is possible, although not the smoothest thing in the world. Again, 18-inch model, 18-inch barrel. Moving up on the handguard, again, we have this mostly decorative stippling. And we have this little piece of Picatinny rail on the bottom, I guess for a bipod, for a flashlight if you're interested in doing something like that. And front swivel stud. And one of the most compelling features, in my opinion, is the threaded barrel. So standard, let me try to do this here. You have your standard 1/2 by 28 threads. Sure. You'll have to take my word for it if you don't trust me, but standard 1/2 by 28 threads for a suppressor, which unfortunately today I don't have to show you, but it does have that very important feature, in my opinion, of being able to host a suppressor, because those have become very common these days, and many rimfire rifles don't have threaded barrels. You know, it still seems to be the exception rather than the norm. So at this price point, I would say that was the main feature that compelled me to get this rifle. So let's take it outside, do some shooting. All right, I have my target set up, that white box all the way down there, about 50 yards down. I have my rifle on a backpack, not the most optimal setup here, nor am I using the most optimal ammunition. It's this cheap stuff, the Winchester M22 that I always use. As you can probably tell, it's windy, so I'll do my best to take some shots. I'm making excuses already. But yeah, let's take some shots and we'll see how the target looks. So there's the group. Not the best thing in the world. Probably, so obviously these boxes are designed to be like 1 inch. I don't think they are quite 1 inch in reality. So that big of a group, probably like maybe 2 inches. Let's be conservative and say 2 inches. You know, my gun sighted at 30 yards. It is windy. I have all these excuses. It's not match grade ammo. Am I satisfied by this performance personally? Yes, because I'm looking for minute of rabbit at a smaller range than this. I'm looking for minute of rabbit out of my kitchen window, 20 yards away. I'm looking for minute of fox. 22 is not the best fox caliber, but minute of fox 30 yards away, something like that. But that is the group, and you can judge it for yourself. I did want to mention, I don't know if you could tell on video, but the ejection on this, as I ran the bolt, unless I really gave the bolt a good tug back, the shell, the casing would often just fall into here. And I think that might have to do with it hitting up against the turrets on the scope, or just the ejection is not very strong. I'm not sure, but it is something to complain about, because there were a few times I had to shake the casing out. So I did want to bring that to your attention. So I have a tiny red plate out there. You probably can't see it, but I'm going to take a few shots at it and see if I hit it. It should make a nice ping if I'm able to hit it. So let's see if we could get that. Yep, saw it move. Saw it move. Yep. Four for 4. 5 for 5. That was pretty good extraction just now. Went flying. I don't know if you saw that. I was shooting at this lower target. I hit it 5 out of 5 times. that is, I don't know how big, smaller than my hand. So again, you be the judge whether that's impressive or good enough. For me, that is well within the criteria that I need for what I'm using this rifle for. Which let me move on to talking about my use case for this gun. So I'm going to share my thoughts on this rifle, what I think it's good for, why I chose it, whether I would choose it again, and whether I think you should consider this rifle. So the reason I chose it is, as I alluded to before, I needed a rimfire rifle for strictly practical purposes. I have a chicken coop to protect, a garden to protect. I get pests in there, and sometimes they need to be dealt with. And a rimfire rifle is a great tool for that. The specific qualities that I need for a pest control firearm is it needs to be accurate. I'm making shots on small creatures. I am making shots in somewhat tight spaces. I don't want to hit a chicken. I don't want to hit a structure on my property. Accuracy is important. And also what is important is reliability. I don't want a failure to occur when I'm in a critical moment, when a fox is about to take my chicken is not the time for my gun to jam. And finally, cost. Cost is important. How much money am I willing to pour into this tool? You could definitely spend a lot of money on a gun, and I was looking to avoid that. So this gun did check all the boxes. It is accurate to the degree that I need it to be. As you saw out there, that was well within my needs. It is reliable. I'm going to put an asterisk there because we did see the issues with extraction. That is something to point out. But other than that, I've found the reliability to be great. So it checked that box. And the cost, really, I can't find anything in this price range for a bolt action rifle other than like those Cricket single shot guns they make for kids, which may or may not be fine. I don't know anything about them, but it's not really comparable to a magazine fed bolt action rifle. Now, a lot of people might be thinking, why not just get a 1022? Why don't you just spend a little bit more money and you get a well-known product and you don't have to take a gamble on, this mystery meat gun from Turkey? The answer to that is because I've owned 1022s in the past. I've owned several semi-auto 22s in the past. Experience, they have not really lived up to their reputation, honestly. So I think this is not something specific to the Ruger 1022. I think an issue that exists with all semi-autos is it adds a degree of rimfire semi-autos. Let me put it that way. It adds a degree to complexity that is really unnecessary for the use case that I need. The thing is, rimfire ammunition is not necessarily very consistent, especially if you use the cheap stuff, which I insist on doing. And often, in my experience, I've had a lot of trouble with failure to eject, failure to cycle, just various jams when I'm relying on the action to cycle on a semi-auto. So I wanted to remove that failure point because, in my opinion, the gains of semi-auto, like rapid fire-up shots, were far outweighed by the lack of reliability in my experience. So I did want to go with a bolt action. Again, I know a lot of people are big fans of the 1022 and other semi-auto 22s. I think they're perfectly fine. Just in my experience with the ammunition I use and for my use case, they're not the best choice for me. Other than the issue of their reliability, we could talk about accuracy. Is the 1022 more accurate than this gun? As we saw, this is not an Olympic shooter. This is not a dime at 100 yards. shooter, at least not in my hands, at least not with the ammunition that I use. Is a 1022 better? In my experience, no. I mean, it's probably on par or a little worse. So there's that aspect. I was just not seeing any gain in a 1022 or similar semi-auto rimfire rifle, and I just saw a lot of relative drawbacks. And of course, the cost, as I mentioned, is higher. So do I like this gun? Yes. Is it, the best thing in the world? Is it the same as a CZ457, which it's clearly trying to clone? No, it's not the same. But it's good enough. It's good enough for me. It's good enough for what I need it for. It checks all the boxes that I need checked, and it doesn't have any of the drawbacks that I'm looking to avoid. So should you get this gun? I can't answer that for you, but I would say this is something to consider. Only because you probably haven't heard of this. You've probably heard of the, Savage bolt actions. If you're looking at other bolt action 22s, the Savage FV series. I think the comparable one to this would be the FVSR. I believe there's the Ruger American, which I've kind of heard nothing but complaints about. Yeah, the Ruger American rimfire. I haven't had any personal experience, but I've heard complaints about that gun. The Savage FVSR, some people complain about accuracy. I doubt it's that different from the accuracy on this gun, but I, again, have no experience. So I would just consider this up there with those options. This may have been a gun that you've never heard of, but I would say it's comparable. It's in the same field as those at somewhat lesser of a price point. So would I recommend this gun for you? Well, I don't know your specific use case, but it worked for my use case. And if you have a similar, pest control desire as I do, then I think this is a good option. I would just urge you to consider it if you're looking into bolt action 22s. Don't write this off, and just consider this. If you could find it, if you could get it shipped to you, or if you could find it in the store, just consider it with those. It's a really good price for a very practical and useful tool. Certainly buy it again. I am glad that I bought it, and I will continue using it. To add to the use case, the threaded barrel makes it very useful. You throw a silencer on there, and you just keep this in your closet, above your doorpost, whatever. And, if a predator appears, I know 22 is not the loudest thing in the world, but if you are concerned about your hearing, which you should be shooting this with earmuffs. If you have a suppressor, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about on ear protection in a pinch. And you could just grab this and take care of business, and your hearing is safe. Yes, I am glad I got this. I am satisfied with this gun, and it will be putting in work for me for a very long time to come. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you learned something. I hope to hear your thoughts below in the comments.